Jesus is not a nice guy. So, this is one of the biggest misconceptions about Jesus. You see people saying things like, oh, Jesus hung out with the sinners. Oh, Jesus said, he who does not want to be judged should not judge. Sure, he did those things. But don't forget, he went into the temple in John 2:13. He went into the temple and he sees the money changers. They are exchanging goods like it's a marketplace in the church, and Jesus makes a whip and he's like, "Yo, get out, get out." And then you have Matthew chapter 23, which this whole thing is Jesus just absolutely verbally assaulting the Pharisees. And he's essentially saying that you are actually weak. You use your words in this legalistic way to manipulate others, and you don't even actually believe them. He uses this analogy. He says that they are like cups that are clean on the outside but dirty on the inside. And this critique where he says that they're manipulative with their words, they use their words to gain social status. They're actually bad on the inside, though they appear moral on the outside. Is this critique is super similar to Nietzsche's critique of Christianity in Genealogy of Morals and Beyond Good and Evil and in the Antichrist. Now, you might think, how could you possibly unite Nietzsche's critique with Jesus' own critique? Well, for one, they're actually the same thing. And the biggest problem with Christianity today could actually be solved not even by just incorporating Nietzsche's critique, but by just remembering Jesus' words. So let's talk a little bit about Nietzsche's critique. So Nietzsche in Beyond Good and Evil and in Genealogy of Morals, he talks about the slave morality and the master morality, or the weak man's morality and the noble man's morality. So the weak man is just like the Pharisees. He uses his words to create this kind of moral shield. He says of the rich man that, oh, he just got his money through being evil and through applying power in ways that are immoral. And this is a common critique right now that's starting to rise. So think about there's lots of populist rhetoric about the billionaires, about corporations. Now with corporations, look, I'm not a fan of bureaucracy. I don't think there's anyone who's actually a big fan of bureaucracy unless they're actively in it. However, when it comes to corporations and billionaires, you often see people saying, oh, this billionaire just got his money through using his power inappropriately. He's actually evil. Well, when you say that, you're just using your words to appear moral, and you're not actually even changing anything about it. And this is what Nietzsche would say. He'd say, you're a weak man. You're doing nothing. Like, you're talking about it. Congratulations. Like, you're really changing the world. Like, you posted something on Instagram. Congratulations, dude. Awesome. So what would the nobleman do in this situation? What would the nobleman do? What would Nietzsche's nobleman do? He would go into the corporation. He'd work his way up. He would take on as much responsibility as he could. And this is what Nietzsche says in Beyond Good and Evil. He said philosophers of the future would weigh themselves by this hierarchy, and the hierarchy at the top of it would be someone who took on the most responsibility. He would be the greatest philosopher, he who could handle the most truth. And that person, if you take on more and more responsibility, if you really have a big problem with the billionaires, how corporations are run, and you infiltrate the corporation, you work your way up, and then you change the rules to how you see fit, that would actually be doing something. But the weak man doesn't do this. The man with the weak morality, with the slave morality, just uses his language to cover up his resentment. He makes these excuses. He says, oh no, I can't get to the gym today. I'm too busy. Oh no, I can't put in extra work at the office for the corporation. It's like, well, hey, do you want to rise to the top? You want to change how things actually are? Or do you just want to complain about it? And what Jesus would say, like Nietzsche, he'd say, yes, whenever you use your words to excuse an action, you are weak and you are not actually a good person. That's the whole of Matthew chapter 23. It's almost like it's almost exactly like Nietzsche's critique of Christianity. And, Nietzsche actually said, this is very interesting, Nietzsche said that Jesus was the only true Christian. So why would he say that? And I think the real reason he said this is that a lot of Christians, they use their Christian morality to just be nice. Oh, we can't actually enforce the law. We need to be nice. We need to forgive. It's like, yes, you do need to forgive, but at the same time, when you allow people to do bad things and you don't, say actually charge them fully for it, you don't actually enforce the law, that's not good. That's not good at all. That's just being weak and excusing yourself from actually acting, from actually being a man who sticks up for morality. It's pathetic. It's completely pathetic. Jesus agreed on this, and so did Nietzsche. So if we unite these two things, that Nietzschean critic with Christianity, and we get a kind of Nietzschean Christianity, that could be a solution to a lot of modern weakness. And I think that Jesus would actually unironically completely agree with this. Because when Nietzsche says that Jesus is the only true Christian, what he's saying is that Jesus, he had the morality. He was nice. He did forgive. He knew the laws of the time, but he knew how to transcend them. He knew how to enforce them. So another thing that Nietzsche said is that he really liked the Old Testament God, which, it seems kind of paradoxical at first, but when you really think about how Nietzsche is, it makes complete sense. Nietzsche was a man who liked to exercise his will. He obviously comes up with this idea of the will to power, which is just exercising your will upon the world, doing things, actually doing things. And Jesus, he actually did things. He goes into the temple. He whips people. He says, "Get out of here. You're being immoral." And he also dies on the cross. He actually is willing to die for his beliefs. So he's not just using his beliefs to protect himself. He's actively going out there and professing them, even at great personal cost. And when people use their beliefs to actually, and whenever they use their beliefs in a way that actually insulates them from suffering consequences, that's not moral at all. That's actually weakness. Nietzsche agreed with this. Jesus agreed with this. Even Carl Jung would agree with this. Carl Jung actually quite literally said that you need to be careful with your morals, because it may be the case that it's not that you believe in your morals, it's that you're not willing to do the thing. So a very simple, concrete example of that would be somebody who, for example, is not sleeping with women, say. They're not actively dating, they're not going around trying to hook up or whatever. So they might say, "Oh, I'm pure. Actually, I don't believe in sleeping with modern women, blah, blah, blah." And you have to ask yourself, well, do you actually not believe that, or do you not have the skill set to go out there and do it? And it's the same thing with the people who attack the billionaires. It's like, do you actually not like the billionaires, or do you actually secretly envy them and want to be them, and you make up this sophisticated excuse as to why you're not them? And when it really comes down to it, it's just because you don't work 85 hours a week and you don't study constantly. You're sitting around, you're smoking weed, you're just chilling at your house, you're not doing anything. It's all just excuses. So, again, to recap everything, Jesus and Nietzsche actually agree. The Pharisees are much like the people that Nietzsche says in the weak morality, the slave morality. They're people who use words to essentially allow themselves to not act. So what's the solution to that? Well, obviously the solution is, number one, to act, but also it's to tell the truth. It's not to use words to protect yourself. Use words to enact yourself upon the world, as long as it's enacting something that's good, true, that's beautiful. And it's not enacting resentment, because that's something that Nietzsche said to be careful about. The noble man is not resentful. He just enacts his will. That's totally different. So if we combine Nietzsche with Christianity, I think we get a solution to this common problem that we see in Christianity of Jesus being nice. Because, he's not nice. He comes back at the end of time to judge everyone, right?